Right, there we are. So welcome, ladies, and thank you for joining me. I'm super chuffed that you have decided to come and join me. So today's masterclass is all about how to own your day. And for me, this is a big thing. I kind of feel like we have those moments when you get to the end of the day and you suddenly realize you had this list of things to do and you had all these tasks and somehow your day got hijacked from you. So today I want to share some tips and tricks to try and avoid that. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys quickly. There it is. And right. So if you ladies can just give me a thumbs up so that I know that you can see that, that would be great. Awesome. Thank you. Technology, it's fantastic. So thank you so much for coming to join me. Like I said, this masterclass is very much about how to own your day. And hopefully by the end of this, you'll have a whole lot of tools that will help you to manage your day and therefore hopefully avoid burnout, or if you are suffering with burnout, to help you manage it a whole lot better. So that is the aim of today. So a big welcome and a thank you for prioritizing yourself and your well-being, your mental health. It's absolutely amazing that you have carved the time out of the day for yourself to do this. And just a little reminder that this training is for you, particularly if you resonate with being burnt out. If you're struggling with the juggle, so you feel like you're always juggling balls and somehow they seem to, that you're never quite managing to juggle all of them. There's always some that slip through and drop. You have high expectations of what you should be able to do. This one for me is huge. I feel like I can always conquer the world in a day and discover at the end of the day that it doesn't always happen. So if you find that you have high expectations of what you can get done in the day, if that to-do list actually ends up just being that little bit too long, or you're being a bit too ambitious in what it is that you're trying to complete in one day. And then, of course, if you're hiding your cape somewhere in your cupboard because you are suffering from the Superwoman syndrome, which I think nowadays is actually a very common thing. As women, we're trying to do so much. We're trying to have a career. We're trying to be the homemaker. We're trying to be perfect in everything that we do, juggling kids and kids' lives. And so I think if we're not actually even wearing the Superwoman cape, it is definitely in our cupboard. So something just to think about. So just a little bit about me. Helena, Carrie, I know both of you, you know me and you know my story, but my mission at the moment, which came to me actually during lockdown, I think it was, I have been a life coach for women, and it was always my mission to help women just to be the best versions of themselves. And then during lockdown, I actually had this epiphany where I was like, actually, you know what? I have walked the walk of having suffered burnout and adrenal fatigue. And this is actually my gift to share with women. And so my mission is to help women who are either suffering with burnout or who are on the brink of burnout. So they're on that path to help them recover and to give them the tools so that they don't need to go down that road again. It is a very hard road and it is not a very comfortable one. And we have enough to deal with in a day. We don't need to add this extra burden onto ourselves. So that is my mission at the moment, which I'm super excited about. I've been having so much fun with it and really making some great changes with some of my clients, loving seeing the progress. It's been very exciting. So how do you know if you have burnout or not? Stress is an interesting thing because each of us has different ways of manifesting the stress in our bodies and in our lives. So here is just a couple of examples of burnout. So headaches, migraines, muscle tension, particularly in your neck and shoulders, because we often tend to do this when you're stressed and you get all hunched up. You'll have trouble sleeping, which is your adrenal glands and the cortisol having gone a bit haywire in your body. If you're feeling overwhelmed or cynical, frustrated and unfulfilled, so you're finding that it doesn't matter what it is that you're doing, that nothing is ever good enough. Irritability and losing your temper, having that really short fuse and snapping at everybody for no good reason. Just being tired. And it doesn't matter how much rest you get. If you've just come back from holiday, you're just tired, that real lethargic feeling, struggling to get up, to get through the day. Oh, we're just quickly going to add nonco. Brain fog and forgetfulness. This one is huge. When I was really in the throes of my burnout, I actually used to have, oh, hey, we've got a few people. There we go. Okay. In the throes of my burnout, I had notebooks everywhere. And I was always struggling to remember what it was I was doing. And so I was writing them down in my notebooks all the time, because that I figured was the only way I'd actually remember to get anything done. No longer looking forward to the things that you used to enjoy. So just whether it was a night out with the girls or whether it was going for a run, just finding no joy in your life at all. So that is also part of the struggle. And then if you notice yourself complaining a lot, that is another big sign. And it's not just complaining about, like, it's just a general complaint about everything. Like, just nothing makes you happy. You're grumpy about things. And you can't, like I say, you just can't find that joy. And that's the key, is if you're not experiencing joy and you can't find joy and laugh, then it's definitely a good tell that there may be something going on. So I found this stat the other day, which I thought was quite something. Like 63% of women feel that they have done an entire day's work before they even get to the office. So we're gonna dive into that one a little bit now. So why is burnout so prevalent nowadays? So one of the big things is the unequal treatment in the workplace. And this is still very much happening today. It is obviously getting better, but it does depend where you are in the world and who you work for. But women still are suffering from that disparity in pay grade. So a man and a woman having the exact same job, the same responsibilities, and the man being paid more. It's fact. It's one of those things. This is not news to anybody. Unequal opportunities. So often women are looked over for opportunities because of the possibility that, oh, well, she's a mom, or, well, she's a woman, so she may get pregnant. And how will that be a problem then in the workplace? How are we going to deal with that? And so often women do get overlooked for those just because of that simple reason, just because we either can reproduce and do reproduce. It is insane. Women are also given roles with no authority, which is quite frustrating, because if you've got quite an important role in your business or in your workplace, but you don't have the authority with which to carry out that work, it actually is almost negating all of the work and effort that you put in. So quite a big one as well. And then, of course, there's always the, oh, well, some jobs are for men and other jobs are for women. Like, yeah. We all know that one, but again, slowly evolving with that one. So hopefully it will change with time. I used to work in a predominantly male corporate industry, and I would say the company that I worked for were quite progressive with regards to equal treatment in the workplace, but there were still these like little nuances of it that still came through. So it is still definitely very, very prevalent. Then the home-work balance, which is pretty much exactly what that other quote was, that stat was alluding to, is that because of how our society functions at the moment, women still have the majority of the home-making responsibility and also the child-rearing responsibility, which is why often you will get to work after just having gotten the whole family going and dropping kids off at school and suddenly find that you're tired and the day hasn't even started yet, but it's because you've had so much responsibility yourself anyway. societal pressure. So this is an interesting one. And in some ways, it is our own pressure on ourselves. So society has created this impression of what the perfect woman is, what the perfect mom is, what the perfect businesswoman is. And we have inadvertently adopted that and then put that pressure on ourselves as well. And for no good reason whatsoever, then everybody else thinks that that is how it should be. Yeah, it's the whole idea of like, are you perfect and have you got your shit together kind of thing. And that is not realistic, and it's not a realistic expectation either. Then the neurological wiring. So this is my favorite one. And this is literally how our brains are wired. So all of the things that we were taught or that we have learned and experienced growing up, our innate characters and personalities, and of course part of that is culture and all that kind of thing. And it is literally how our brain is wired and how we can then respond. And the reason why this is my favorite one is because this is where we can actually have some control, where we have an area of influence. Yes, the other three, we can have a degree of control and influence, but not nearly as much as what we can for our own neurological wiring. So the reason why this one is my favorite is because of a beautiful thing that our brains have called neuroplasticity. And that is literally that we are able to rewire our brains. So I love these two pictures. So you've got this beautiful open tar road through the trees. And if you have a look, that would be our default brain routes, or default routes at the moment. And so the road is easy, it is nice to go along, it's nice and smooth, it's pretty obvious. You're not going to struggle along that road. Whereas we can literally rewire our brain, but the problem is that we need to start off on the dirt track, which is narrow, it's uneven, it's a little bit harder work, it's not always as obvious. But the good news is that if we keep walking that path and we keep reinforcing that route, that will eventually become the default. So eventually you'll find the little track through the trees will end up becoming like the tar road through the trees. A really good example of neuroplasticity is when people have been in an accident and the prognosis is not good. People have been told they're not going to be able to walk again, and they actually do manage to train themselves how to walk. And that is just using a different area of your brain that hasn't been damaged to teach yourself to do something. So our brains are phenomenal. It's really great. So this is where we need to tap into to make changes. So what can we do about burnout? Today, we're going to jump into 8 themes on the road from burnout to brilliance. So owning your diary, creating routines, our habits, learning to say no, creating boundaries, tapping into your intuition, auditing your to-do list, and then the art of kindness. So you will find that there's going to be a little bit of overlap in between them. None of them actually stand alone, but they are all very powerful, and hoping that you ladies are all going to learn something new today. So let's dive in. Owning your diary. So this one's a pretty easy one in a sense. Whether you use a digital diary or you go old school and you use the good old book like I do, you need to put everything into your diary. Absolutely everything. So I will normally sit on a Friday afternoon and I will actually plan the week ahead. So I've got kids. I always put in all of their stuff, when I need to drop them off, when I need to pick them up, who needs to be carted everywhere. I then also go in and I will put in my non-negotiables. So that's my stuff. I do gym on these and these days, in these times. I teach yoga on these and these days, in these times. And those are set. They are done. Now, everything else can fit in around them. And if you book them in and you make them hard limits, you'll be surprised that people, and I mean, you don't have to tell anybody why you can't make a meeting at 10 o'clock. They're just like, I'm sorry, I already have an appointment at that time. The fact that you're going to a pottery lesson is completely beside the point. That is not information they need to know. You just have a standing appointment. Done. And it's amazing how people will actually get trained and they will then know that some things are non-negotiable. And then factor in things like travel times and meals. When I had first started owning my diary, I was a bit ambitious and I actually would forget about travel times and meals and things like that. And definitely it is something that comes with practice, so that the more that you do it, the easier it becomes. But if you can factor in all of these things and you plan ahead for the week or even for the month, it's so much easier then to plan each and every day and to be realistic about what it is that you can do each day. So suddenly your to-do list will only be, say, 3 items instead of 10. And when you get to the end of the day and you're like, oh, well, I did do all 3 items on my to-do list, you reaffirming that this planning is working and that you are capable. Whereas if you have that unrealistic expectation and you plan 10 things, which you're never going to get around to doing, you're just setting yourself up for failure. And at the end of the day, you feel like a failure and that you have not succeeded. So owning that diary, putting everything in the diary, it's such a small thing, but it makes the biggest difference. So this I actually added in at the last minute. Phones. We generally have our phones with us everywhere we go, and all the notifications are all switched on. So, and what happens is when your notifications are switched on, your phone is bing, bing, bing next to you the whole time and distracts you. So you go and you have a look and you see what's going on. If you're busy with a task that requires your utmost focus and attention, switch all the notifications off. You will get so much more work done because you won't be distracted. Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, emails, the whole lot, switch them all off. You can schedule time in your day to go in and check on these. And that's again in your diary. You can pop in times to go and have a look at it, because let's face it, there's also something in scrolling aimlessly through Instagram, just enjoying other people's photos. But it shouldn't be a constant distraction for you. And if you're really focusing on something that's important, even put your phone onto flight mode or put it onto mute. And it was so interesting because I went to gym last week and I had muted my phone and I missed one of my clients. She just was driving past, so she wanted to just quickly pop in. And when I got back to her, I was like, hey, sorry, I missed you. My phone was on mute. And she was like, oh my word, we should do that much more often. Like, it's such a small thing, but it made such a big difference to her. So it was like, yeah, that's a good one. So that's the reason why it's in here today, is scheduling the time to go and aimlessly scroll through Instagram. Or if you have email on your laptop as well and you're working on your computer, your laptop, again, if it doesn't need to be switched on, switch it off. Check it first thing in the morning, schedule times in your day to have a look at your email, but otherwise switch it off so that you don't get distracted by it. Okay. Next one, routines. Now, we often get the idea that a routine is boring and bland, but if you create routines that work for you, you will feel more organized, you will be less stressed. And if you have good routines, particularly in the morning and in the evening, those are like the 2 key things. So the thing with routines is that we do them consistently, and so we become good at them. And that is also a nice little self-esteem boost. But it's also things that then we're creating good habits. So for example, we don't really think about brushing our teeth every morning and every evening. It's just part of our routine that we go and we get done. So routines are not only good for you physically, but also mentally. If we have less decisions to make because we've created a routine that works, that also means that we have got less stress in our life. So a really cool example of this is if you have a look at Obama, Elon Musk, and old Jobs from Apple, they all wear the same outfit almost every day. And they were just like, well, it's one less thing to worry about. So maybe as ladies, we don't want to be quite that drastic, but if you minimize your cupboard and you've got less decisions to make, it's just less for you to get stressed about. It really does work. We also will have you will find that because you have gone through your day and this routine is set up for you, it actually helps with your self-confidence, but also because you got less stress in your life, you're going to sleep better. And then between having less decisions to make and sleeping better, you will be more cognitive for the big decisions that you need to make. So it'll be easier to make those big decisions because you can actually focus on them instead of juggling all those 100 balls. We're now just juggling a handful of balls, which is so much easier to make. So when someone throws a new one at you, it's easy to take it and incorporate it into the juggle. So by creating a routine that works for you, you start your day off right, which I'm sure if any of you follow any entrepreneurs, they always push the morning routine. And it's often difficult to juggle with kids in the house, but even if you have a small morning routine, it really does set your day up right. And if your day is right, it means that you can own the rest of the day rather than having your day hijacked by you. It also creates time. And this is the one thing that I think is a big problem in burnout, is that we just don't have enough time. But now by creating a routine and eliminating decisions, by then getting good at the routine, we create more time in our lives. And time is the most valuable thing that we have. So it is amazing. So how do you create a routine? We're obviously all different. Some of us are early morning people, some of us are late night people. And the best thing to do is to try and fit your routine into how your body works happily and naturally as well. So it's suggested that what you do is that you take a list, and for a week, you schedule out all of the things that you do every day for a week, weekends and during the week as well. Write it all down, all the things that you need to get done. And you may go through and find that there's a few things that you can delete or eliminate or delegate, and we'll touch on that a little bit later. But you'll hopefully then start to see like a bit of a routine that you can start to develop. And it takes a little while to get into a routine, but you're going to change it and you're going to shuffle a bit and see what works. But once you create that routine, life becomes so much simpler and easier for you. So while routines seem boring, they are super, super helpful. And for us in our home, this is a big one for me. The kids know that in the evenings we have a routine. So I'm busy making dinner. They will get their school bags packed. They will pack their own lunches, and they'll have the bags ready at the door. Because what that means is that the next morning, there is less chaos and panic in the house. So even for the kids, they have learned that these are really good routines and they need to do them so that the next morning there is less crazy. So it really does work. I can attest to it. Right, habits. So I have written here the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the reason why I say that is I don't particularly like the idea that we have good habits and bad habits, because eating healthily can be a good habit, but it can also become a bad habit when it becomes an obsession, or when you become addicted almost to that, and your behavior changes because of it. So everything in moderation, and that's why I say the good, the bad, and the ugly. Routines actually also help you to instill good habits and help you to shift bad habits, because if you are creating them you create the habits in that routine, and the routine becomes easier, it reinforces that habit. So it means that you don't require as much discipline. And a really good example, again, is just of brushing your teeth. Brushing your teeth is good for you. And because it's part of your morning routine and your evening routine, you do it and you don't actually even think twice about it. It's not hard work. So if you can incorporate exercise, drinking water, eating better, whatever it is, into your routines, then you'll automatically find they will be easier to do rather than more difficult to do. So, there they are. Cool. So here are just a few habits that I want to chat with you guys. We don't have lots of time, so I just want to quickly dive into each of these. So the first one is gratitude. This is one of my favorite practices. And before I even open up my eyes in the morning, I always just very quickly think of a handful of things that I'm grateful for. before I've woken up properly. And sometimes it is simple as like, I had a really good night's sleep, I have a nice cozy bed, my children slept all night, you're looking forward to something that day. And it's amazing how just practicing that small amount of gratitude in the morning can set up your day right, because then you start to look for more things to be grateful for. And the same thing in the evenings. If you practice gratitude in the evenings just before going to bed, you will find that you suddenly like appreciate all of the things that happen in the day, and it can often turn a bad day into a good day. It can also turn a bad day into a learning day, like, oh, hang on, I recognize this, this, and this. I must be aware of it. I can change things tomorrow. So really awesome. And there's so many ways that you can practice gratitude, and it's for free, and it really is a self-fulfilling practice. The other one is meditation. I love meditation. It is one of my all-time favorites. And it's so interesting because so many people are always saying to me, oh, I don't have time for meditation. But again, meditation is one of those things that if you don't have time and you schedule the time to meditate, you actually do end up creating more time. By meditating consistently, you find that you're more productive, you're more creative, you're more focused. It's just easier to get other stuff done. I'm being told I have an unstable internet connection. Okay, there we go. So meditation is an absolutely powerful tool. It's amazing because you can literally do it anywhere. And there are so many apps available that you can use for guided meditations, or even simply having a mindful breath for 1 minute will also qualify as a meditation. And so also great skill to teach kids if you've got kids. And it is something that I recommend. I will often find if I get to a meeting a little bit early, or I get to fetch the kids a bit early, I will just sit in the car for 5 minutes and do a meditation there. And it just makes the whole day that much better. It also helps to reduce your stress. And if you are worrying about something, or your imagination has run away about something that you're anxious with, this just helps to put it back into perspective and keep things real for you. Journaling. This is my other favorite one. So I have a journal, generally at least one. I normally have more than, in fact, I don't have my journal here with me. It's next door in my office. I generally always have a journal with me, and I find the journaling and meditation go really well together. The journaling and the gratitude go really well together. And it's just a beautiful place to be able to write how you're feeling, if any fears are coming up, what you're anxious and stressed about. It is a great way to write down your visions and goals. You can have a gratitude rampage where you just write an entire list of things that you're grateful for. There are so many different ways to use a journal. And just the physical act of writing on a piece of paper with a pen is actually it's amazing what it does. So as an example, if you actually write out your vision and your goals, you are more likely to actually go through and commit to them and meet them, because your brain triggers it as important. Like, oh, hang on, Jackie's written this down, it is important. And then you will actually find yourself looking for opportunities to fulfill those goals. So it's very powerful. At the same time, you can also use it, like I said, gratitude. You can write a beautiful rampage, which is really great. And there's just so many bullet journals. And then you can go onto Pinterest and go and have a look. There is a plethora of ways to journal. And that journaling is it's amazing. It's very therapeutic. And of course, it should be a safe thing that no one else can read. It's private, it's yours, it's for nobody else. And you can go back and read it if you want to. At the same time, if you don't want to go back and read it, that's also okay. It's a very personal thing. So the next habit is exercise or movement. We obviously all know that exercise is really good for you. But I think for me, the important thing is to find the exercise that makes you happy and works with your body. About a year ago, I started training with a personal trainer and doing weights and things like that, which I used to think I would hate to do. And my body actually really enjoys that weights training. So you just got to play around and try different types of exercise and body movements. Find what your body's happy with and what you enjoy and do that. Even if it's to take up a dance class, if that's what makes you happy, you go and you do that. I enjoy running, I enjoy yoga, and as I say, my new thing is weight training at the gym, which I've also really been enjoying, but which I say my body has also been enjoying. Eating healthily, and I'm not going to go into too much of this. We obviously all have got different bodies with different body types, and I think it's really important to spend a bit of time finding out what it is, again, that works for your body. So what foods work for your body, what foods don't work for your body, what supplements your body needs. You might not be getting enough supplements because of your diet, so spending a bit of time on those things and making sure that you are well nourished, because if you're well nourished, then your body can be in its optimum, and so can your brain, which means that you can then thrive. And I'm not going to say that being a vegan or a vegetarian or being gluten-free is the best way to go. I honestly believe that because we all have different body types, we all have to find the right diet that works for us. And it also has to be sustainable. You have to be able to have a meal that you can cook for your whole family, not just one meal for you and different meals for everybody else, because that's just adding to your stress. So you don't want to do that. Water. We are made up of 75% roughly of just water. So our body needs water. When we wake up in the morning, the first thing we should be doing is having a glass of water. For me, I have this bottle, which I carry around with me everywhere. I know that's 800 mils of water. And so I know that I want to drink at least 3 of these a day. Some days is harder than others, especially in winter or in those cold days. But by having this and knowing the volume of it, it makes it easier for me to manage and control. Also, when I go and switch the kettle on to go make a cup of tea, I will drink some water first, and then while the kettle's boiling, it's a nice sneaky way just to bring that water in. The next one is mindfulness. So mindfulness is a beautiful habit that we can create to use in your daily life. And mindfulness is just really the practice of being absolutely present at any one time. Generally, if we are fearful or anxious about something, we're either living in the past or the present. Something that we're worried about is going to happen, or fearful of something that has happened. Mindfulness just always brings us back to the center, back to here and now. And life is a lot easier and a lot less stressful if we can be mindful. It does take practice, and we do need to continually check in with ourselves and be aware of ourselves, but it is a beautiful practice. The 8th habit I have here is mindset. So mindset, everyone generally says you either have a fixed mindset or you have a growth mindset, but I have discovered that we actually have a little bit of both. But what's really great is, very much like the neuroplasticity, we can shift from a fixed mindset into a growth mindset. Sometimes it is more difficult than other times, but having that growth mindset means that you are much more resilient in the day, you're much more resilient through those bad times, which means that you then can ride the ebb and flow of life and what life throws at us. If you have a fixed mindset, often problems become even bigger because you have a huge resistance to them because of your fixed mindset. So I'm not going to go into too much more. I just wanted to touch on all of these wonderful habits that you can incorporate into your day. And you'll see on the screen, I've left some space at the bottom. And that's just because there are so many more beautiful habits out there that we can incorporate into our day. But these are just 8 that I wanted to touch on. Okay. Learning to say no. So this has actually been a fun one that I've also been chatting to a lot of people about in the last little while. So I think the biggest thing about being able to say no is learning why you can't say no. So which of these 4 do you resonate with? The people pleaser. So you hate saying no to somebody because you just want to please other people, you want to help them, you don't like the feeling that other people may dislike you or judge you. Afraid of missing out. So having that serious FOMO. You're sitting at home enjoying a movie or reading your book. All of your friends have gone out. What are you missing out on? Does that resonate? The overachiever, so someone who can do it all, and then the pushover, the doormat, the person who just can't say no regardless, just because it's just too intimidating, it's too hard. Personally, I am a bit of a people pleaser and an overachiever. It obviously does depend on the situation and the people that I am dealing with. When I was working in corporate, the overachiever was probably the big thing that kept popping up. And it's interesting because as soon as you're aware of it and you're mindful of it, when you hear yourself saying yes, when you want to say no, you suddenly like, oh, hang on, flag. I'm saying yes because I'm trying to please somebody here. So it's a really awesome thing to be aware of. And you can be a combination of each. And like I say, depending on the situation, you may find that you're more of one than another. So it's a good one to think about. So are you a people pleaser? Do you suffer from FOMO? Are you the overachiever? Or are you being the pushover? And it's okay to say no to others when you can say yes to yourself. I think when I heard that quote, that was like a huge game changer for me. I don't like saying no, and we're brought up to be polite and to be considerate of others. And we're not actually brought up to worry about ourselves and put ourselves first. But when you switch that around and you're like, actually, I'm saying no to you so I can say yes to me, it puts a whole other spin on it. Suddenly it becomes easier to say no. So by identifying why we can't say no, we can then start to put this into practice. And I recommend starting off with colleagues, like people who you associate with on a daily basis, but you're not really friends and family with, because you're not as invested with them. And it's a great way to practice that saying no. When you get more comfortable, you can then shift to learning to say no with your friends who may be more difficult, and then shift again once you got the hang of it to saying no to your family. And it is amazing because once you start saying no and you start finding that power to say no, it actually gets kind of fun to say no. Like, I can say no, yes. So it really is. You do start to create a bit of momentum, and it's amazing because suddenly you're putting yourself first, and your self-esteem and your self-worth also increase by learning to say no. So something to practice if you're not very good at saying no. And of course, families are the worst. They can also catch you unawares, which is where the mindfulness comes in. If you are more mindful, there's less chance of someone catching you out when you're unaware. And so you'll be able to say no and not have them hijack you, which is really, really awesome. Okie dokes. Boundaries. So boundaries and saying no kind of go hand in hand together. What are boundaries? Boundaries are either physical, because sometimes it is physical, or they can be emotional, they can be mental, but they are the guidelines or rules that you put in place for you to make you feel safe. And those boundaries teach other people or give other people a sense of where they stand compared to you. And we all have different boundaries, and we'll have different boundaries with different people. And that's fine, and that's perfectly acceptable. But the boundaries help everyone to know exactly where they stand with each other. So, for example, you may get somebody who is a hugger and another person who's very uncomfortable. And there's nothing worse for an uncomfortable person to be hugged by a hugger. And so there has been a crossing of boundaries there. And I think maybe that's where COVID has actually probably done us a huge favor, is those people who are not huggers can now be like, whoop, no, not hugging. And you have a value, like a viable reason not to be hugged. Whereas the people who are huggers are like, You a hugger? Yes, you're a hugger. Okay, and they go in for a hug. So it has been interesting. I think COVID has helped to put some of those boundaries in place and to make those foundations stronger for certain people. And the thing with boundaries that it's all stuff, again, it's all our personal boundaries are based on our past experiences, how we've been brought up, and also just your innate character. So I want to just jump to the next slide. So here we go, creating healthy boundaries. So unhealthy boundaries are like the whole hugging example. Some people are not huggers, and if someone crosses your boundary and gives you a hug, if you're not that kind of person, you feel uncomfortable, you don't feel safe. And so that's why we have these boundaries in place, to make us feel safe, that this is our comfort zone. So setting healthy boundaries. I love this because it's so simple and so effective. So we start off by identifying the desired boundary. Again, you may have different boundaries with different people. Your family and friends, you may be very comfortable with hugging as an example, but your colleagues, maybe not so much. And that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that. But identifying those desired boundaries within the context. Then communicating them. So just, sorry, I don't hug, I'm not a hugger. Keeping it simple. So you don't need to explain why you have this boundary, that's yours. And I think this is the other thing that we probably struggle with a lot as women, is that we explain ourselves way too much. Like, you don't need to. And this goes with the whole saying no thing as well. And having your diary. I'm sorry, I have a standing appointment there. I can't meet you at this time. You don't need to explain why. I'm sorry, I can't make that function, or I can't help you with this. You don't have to explain why. Boundaries as well. You don't have to explain why. I don't feel comfortable with this. That is enough. That's all you need to say. It's a hard boundary. And then the consequences. So why is this important to you? And what is going to happen if someone doesn't respect your boundaries? And again, this is obviously different in different contexts. In a personal relationship with a partner or something, there's often things like, we're going to take smoking as an example, which may be a hard limit. And if your partner suddenly starts smoking and that's a hard limit for you, well, then potentially the relationship could be on the line. So those are the consequences that we need to be put in place. And if we're quite clear about what the boundary is, keeping it nice and simple, communicating it, and having those consequences in place, it's amazing how everything shifts. Now, when you start to put those boundaries in place, often people will push back. And it's because now you're stepping into your own and you're making them feel uncomfortable. And a lot of people will push back at first, but so long as you stay quite strongly and firmly on that boundary, they will eventually adapt and adjust, which is great because you're now teaching them how you expect to be treated. Some people will not care and will bulldoze through that boundary continuously, and that's where the consequences come in. So hang on, does this person need to be in my life? Is there something I can change to make sure that that boundary isn't crossed again? There's different ways to manage it, and obviously you have to fit how you manage it to the appropriate place. So for example, in a workplace, if someone crosses a border, you may be able to go to HR and go and lay a grievance or something like that. Sometimes just a simple conversation can help. It does depend. And that also then starts to help you to see, well, hang on, who are the people in my life who support me and who are the ones who don't? And suddenly you're also starting to see, like, hang on, I should be spending more time with these people and less time with those, because these are the folks who support me, who respect me. Those ones don't, they undermine me. And slowly but surely you will see how things shift, and you will start spending less time with those people who don't respect your boundaries. So a very, very important one. And I think particularly for women, there is a beautiful podcast by Oprah Winfrey where she interviews a chap about women's safety. And he says the problem is that we have been conditioned to be polite. We are polite, so much to our own detriment. And he actually interviewed a whole series of girls who had been polite to strangers and had, in some cases, had almost ended up in them being killed by the stranger, by them being raped by the stranger. So we've got to be very careful about who we are polite to and why we are polite to them. I don't know if any of you are guilty of this. I know I am, or at least I used to be. You'd see someone standing at the side of the road and they just look suspect. Like you just get that feeling in your gut, like something's not right, but you feel like it's rude to lock the car. Like, no, it's not. If you're not feeling safe, there is nothing rude about locking your car to make sure that you feel safe. So watch out for the politeness. Okay, jumping into the next one, tapping into your intuition. So this is an interesting one for me. Women have incredibly strong intuition, but again, we have been brought up not to listen to it. So what is intuition? Intuition is that gut instinct, that immediate reaction to someone, something, whatever it is, a situation. And it's often felt physically in your body, this intuition. And what that is that is your own innate knowing. And it is very powerful because 99% of the time, it is bang on. We tend to overthink things. We tend to think about what would so-and-so say, what would this person do, what would that, and then we completely negate our intuition. So often we don't use that intuition enough, and it is a pity because it is an amazing and powerful thing. So I just want to share with you 2 beautiful tools for tapping into your intuition. The first one is just simply called the heart meditation. So if you will play along with me, just gently close your eyes. You can put your hands over that heart center, both feet on the ground, and just take a few beautiful breaths here. So big, beautiful inhale, big, beautiful exhale. Beautiful inhale, beautiful exhale. Just quietening the mind. And then I want you to ask your heart if it's listening to you. And now I want you to ask your heart to give you a yes, a big, resounding yes. And how does your body feel? Do you feel light? Do you feel like there's lots of space in your body? Just check in. How does your body feel? Now I want you to ask your heart to give you a no. So a big, clear no. So notice, is there a difference? How does your body feel now? Does it feel heavier? Does it feel more contracted? And gently open up your eyes again. You can put your hands down. So just tapping into that and stopping for a moment and listening to your heart. I don't know about you guys, but when I feel a yes, I feel like there's lots of space and my body feels energized and my heart feels big and I feel like I could conquer the world. When my heart says a no, I feel heavy and I feel dense and everything like contracts around me. And that is just my intuition and tapping into that intuition to find yes or no. And so we can use this for lots of things. And for me, a really fun one to play with is supplements and foods. So going somewhere and being like, okay, opening up your cupboard. These are the supplements I have in my cupboard. Body, heart, do I need this one today? Yes or no? And just checking in, how does the body feel? Yes, you do. Oh, okay, great. Next one. Body, do I need this one today? Yes or no? And just going through. So it's fun to play with. And it's amazing because intuition is one of those things that the more that you practice, the more that you use it, the easier it is. And eventually you won't even have to be so mindful and conscious about it. It'll actually just happen automatically. The other tool is light or heavy. So we obviously all have our own different truths. All our bodies are different. All of our experiences are different. And the light or heavy tool is also quite a nice one. So I'm trying to think of an example, the same one as the supplements. Picking up whatever supplement it is, say the vitamin C for the day, and like, okay, so do I need this for today? Does that feel light or heavy? And you will actually feel your body shift and change. If it's light, oh yes, my body wants this. No, it's heavy. No, not. It feels uncomfortable and sticky and gooey. Okay, not this one for me today. And you can use the light or heavy tool or the heart meditation. They are quite similar, but it's just that awareness and tapping into your body and listening to your body and what does your body say. So two very powerful tools. And the reason why I think that tapping into your intuition is so good is because when you're running on burnout or you're on that road to burnout, we run on defaults and we let other people control our lives. And so you may be eating foods that aren't intuitively good for you. You may be making decisions that aren't intuitively good for you. You're just running on autopilot. And it's because we're in survival mode. When you get to that phase, you're in survival mode, so your capacity is limited. But if you start to use these and tap into these tools, you can shift out of survival mode into a more mindful way of living, which means that your days will no longer be hijacked and that you will have more space and less stress in your day. So that is your intuition. This one is also one of my favorites, auditing your to-do list. So at the beginning of every year, I will always have my goals for the year, which are my priorities. And it's always good to keep them 3 to 5, and 5 being your absolute maximum. And if you identify what those priorities are in your life, you can then go and audit your to-do list against those priorities. So I always like to just have my priorities normally in the front of my diary. So it's quick and easy. So when I'm going through my to-do list, I can flip back to my priorities and have a look and see, like, hang on, is my to-do list in line with my priorities? Or have I been hijacked here somewhere along the line? And it's quite an interesting one. It's quite an interesting exercise to do, because often you will find what is important for somebody else is not necessarily important for you. And then it shuffles your whole to-do list around. So the next slide is one of my favorites to help with this kind of thing. So you take your to-do list. So number one, is it in line with your priorities or not? Yes, it is. Okay. Then you have a look at this. So is it urgent for you? Is it important for you? Not necessarily for somebody else. Is it not important but urgent? Or is it not important and not urgent? And you can go through your whole to-do list and just do a quick audit of like this. And suddenly you'll find there's some tasks which you actually don't need to do at all. And there's other tasks that you can actually delegate and give to somebody else to do, which is amazing because now you're creating more time in your day. The trick though is that you do need to use this tool week to week or day to day, because some things will shift from not urgent to urgent. So I love using the color coding like this, because it also is quick to read and quick for you to identify, oh, okay, these are the 2 important things that I need to get done today. Easy to identify. These ones not so important. But often what happens is that you may have an important and urgent task to do, and you find yourself procrastinating. So then maybe take one of the important but not urgent tasks and do that to give you a feeling of a quick win. It then puts you back into the right frame of mind to deal with the urgent and important tasks. So there's lots of little tricks around this. But it is quite liberating to audit your to-do list and find stuff to completely delete, yay, and stuff to delegate. So some nice tools there. And ladies, I will send you the presentation and the recording of this, so you will have copies of everything, so you don't need to rush to write it all down. So you will get it. Okay, and then my last one, which is practicing self-kindness. So what does self-kindness look like? We're obviously all different, so self-kindness can look different for all of us. And because we also have different love languages, often our self-kindness can be different because of our different love languages. But I love this little photo of this little girl. She's giving herself like the hugest hug, and you can see how happy she is. And I think that is just the most amazing example of self-kindness right there. That's what it should look and feel like. So what can it look like? Self-kindness can be deleting an app, or like we said earlier, switching your notifications off on apps. It could be muting a group chat. I don't know about you guys, but my family's group chat is muted for the whole year, because if I could do it forever, I would do it forever, because they chat. And it's not that I don't want to be a part of the family, but I don't want to have the constant ping, 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 ping. Oh, look, I framed my puzzle that I did during lockdown. Great, but I'm busy working now, so it's not important to me right now. I'll catch up with them later on. The whole thing of saying no, which is really a powerful tool. Auditing that to-do list, so getting rid of some of those bits and pieces. Limiting your consumption of bad news. So bad news obviously comes in different forms. A couple of years ago, went and completely refurbished my algorithm on Facebook. I was sick and tired of only seeing negative stuff on Facebook. And so I unfollowed a whole lot of people, which, by the way, they don't even know, they don't even care. And I slowly but surely have flipped my Facebook feed into positive and joyful and happy, rather than negative and it was horrible, and it's totally doable. So you can limit how much you dabble into that bad news or into those toxic environments. Practicing the really good habits are also just forms of self-kindness. Giving yourself the night off and buying pizza for the family can also be a way of self-kindness. And I think for me, one of the biggest things is to have a look at where it is that you're judging yourself the hardest, because let's face it, we do all judge ourselves. And that is maybe where we need to look at to practice the self-kindness the most. So identifying what it is that stresses us out, putting tools in place to help us with those, to help us manage those, and then finding ways to just show some love and kindness to yourself. I love the saying that you cannot fill from an empty cup. So if your cup is empty, there's no ways you can help everybody else around you. And of course, there's people who you love and who you want to help around you. But if you're not in a good place, you can't be in a good place for them either. So that is practicing self-kindness. Okay, so I want to say thank you to you ladies for your time. I have loved this. I hope you guys have all learned something. I am going to open up time for Q&A just now, but I just want to quickly share something that I have been working on with you guys, which I am thrilled about. So here it is. My Burnout to Brilliance group program. So as you guys will know, I have been working with women. It has generally been on a one-on-one basis, which has been amazing, and I've loved it, and we've had really great results. But what I wanted to do was shift out of, so I will still offer the one-on-ones, but I'm going to shift into a group program as well. So having spent lots of time with quite a lot of clients who are in that burnout place, I have taken their tailored programs and found that there's obviously a lot of stuff that is the same. There's a lot of underlying elements which are the same across the board. And I'm going to take all of those, we're going to put them into a 6-month program. So at a 6-month Burnout to Brilliance program, there are going to be So many tools, so much stuff to dive into, all to help with the recovery, to put sustainable habits in place for you that are tailored for you, that work for you. And there will be access to a library of resources, which will be absolutely amazing. Interviews with some really phenomenal people, which I'm also excited about, who have different skill sets and will be able to give expertise and knowledge into those places. In this group program, there will be weekly meetings. So the group getting together once a week to have a meeting. It'll all be done online. We will have different topics for each week, which we'll deep dive into in consecutive weeks. So really great part of that. The meetings are also there to give you support and to check in on how everyone is doing. There will be a private Facebook group, so only members of the group program will be in that Facebook group, and there will be continuous support through the Facebook group. There will be weekly tools like meditations, affirmations, and other tools, which will all be shared in the Facebook group. So I am super, super excited about this. So just very quickly to share with you guys, the normal price will be $6,000. And of course, at the moment, for all you wonderful ladies, it'll be $4,997, and that's obviously across the 6 months. So there is a payment plan for that one. So that is which I'm so excited about this group program. I've had lots of people asking for it, and I think it is a very good next step. So ladies, do you guys have any questions that I can support you with? Anything you need some clarity on? Now is your opportunity. Give me a shout. Let me know. You can unmute yourself. You can put it in the chat box, whatever works best for you. I'm just going to close that. Oh, what has happened? Okay, right, there we are. Okay, so ladies, anyone have any questions? I'm just trying to find. Right, I'm not quite sure what has happened here. I've taken it off of sharing the screen and I don't know what's happened. What is going on? Okay, never mind. We'll just leave that in the background. Have you guys got any questions? Is there anything that wasn't clear?
Jackie, thank you so much. This has been absolutely amazing. I'm a bit of a slow processor, so I might have some questions later.
That's perfect, Carrie. You know how to get hold of me. Either email, DM, WhatsApp, whichever works for you. Yeah.
And if I can just say, this has been great because I kind of felt like I was the only one. So this has kind of just reassured me that this is okay and it's all right to feel like this. So thank you.
Carrie, I have been chatting to so many ladies lately. And it's interesting. I think because I have niched into this, it's opened up the opportunity for people to have these conversations with me. At the moment, women are going through a lot. There's obviously the whole COVID thing that we've all had to deal with, teaching kids at home, working from home. There's lots of uncertainty. You may have had a routine which worked, which has now completely been thrown out. So you're definitely not alone. There are lots of ladies who are going through the same stuff. They really are. And I mean, burnout has also initially always been something that has been referred to in the workplace. It's not limited just to the workplace. You can have burnout at home as well. And it's okay.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Pleasure, pleasure, pleasure. Also, I mean, if I'm going to send you guys the recording, so if you go through it again and you pick up anything, also just give me a shout.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Non-cool, Helena, you guys got anything?
Just a quick one. Thank you so much, Jackie. Apologies, I was late. I was having one of those days, technology. But quick question, burnout versus year-end fatigue, because everyone's complaining about year-end fatigue. But for me personally, it's not year-end fatigue, because I think even if I have my December break, I will still feel next year when I come back. I don't think I'll pop up and, everyone's expecting next year when we come back to work, it's going to be all jolly, it's going to be all happy, and we've had our rest and all that. So how do you tell the difference between the two?
That is a great question. Really great question. So I think that whole thing of whether you get enough rest or not and how you're feeling after that rest. So like as an example, I can remember when I was going through burnout, like you'd have a whole weekend where you're like, that's it. I'm actually doing nothing but stuff for me. And so you would have a wonderful, restful weekend, but Monday morning would come around and you'd still be tired. You'd still have that pit in your stomach. You would still feel lethargic. And I think those are the sorts of indicators that are popping up. And I think, I think it has to do with that rest. And the thing is that you are getting a rest, but it is not fulfilling everything. And it's because of the stress. And I think this year, particularly being the kind of year that we've had to go through, short of taking December off, like the whole of December, I don't think that the holiday, the end of year fatigue would be enough. So I think it's to have a look and at the sort of symptoms of the burnout and see, well, how many of those are still there after your rest? Are they still popping up or not? But I think that's a really good question. I love it. It's a brilliant question. Because yes, sometimes you do just need a holiday and then everything is right, your attitude is right, your body's good. But maybe have a look as you're going through the day. If you're short of temper and you lash out at somebody, why are you doing it? How is your body feeling? How are you feeling when you wake up? How does Monday morning feel like? And yeah, I think you get a pretty good sense of whether it is end of year fatigue or not. Also remember, men function differently to women. So they may be able to have end of year fatigue or burnout, be the same thing, have that holiday and come back and be completely fine with it. Women are much more complicated. We just are. It's how we're wired. Does that help you?
No, definitely it helps. But I think also it's because at times you don't fully rest. Like for me, December is not a rest period. And actually, funny enough, is that's the time I take most of my leave.
Yeah.
Because it's my birthday, it's Christmas, it's New Year's, and then all of a sudden I'm back at work. And I'm like, did I rest? I don't think I rested enough. So I think you need to make that decision to take off probably like a week of that December, which is hard, and maybe completely rest to be able to start again in the new year.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
But yeah, thank you so much.
And taking what works for you as rest. So it doesn't have to be lying on the couch watching Netflix for a week, but maybe it looks like going on holiday somewhere beautiful, and maybe there's a bit of adventure in it. And that can still be really good for your soul, because it's not just that you rest in your body, but you need to rest your soul. Whereas, as you say, often December is actually more busy than the rest of the year because we've got all these social obligations and Christmas and birthdays and end of year functions, and they add up. And actually, you then also find you're not sleeping properly, you're not eating properly, you're probably drinking a bit more than what you should, and so you're not getting that rest actually. Yeah. But
okay.
Great question.
Cool. Thank you so much. This is quite helpful. There's a lot of things pointed that I really need to start putting in place. The one thing I personally struggle with is routines. I think we'll blame it on COVID, but it's not COVID. It's not COVID, it's self-discipline. You put together a routine and then 2 weeks later it's gone again, and then you start again. So I've been starting over and over again, and that's why I end up being in a bit of a twirl, and I feel like I'm chasing my tail most of the time because of the lack of routine and stopping and starting the routine that I'm starting. Yeah.
So maybe something to think about is having a look to see, well, what are those things that are causing the routine to wobble? I know you do travel for work, so that could possibly be one. And that's fine. So like on that day, or those 2-3 days, whatever it is, that's fine. You can completely accept that your routine may be out a little bit. But as soon as you get back home, getting back into it. So have a look and see what it is that it is triggering the routine to wobble. And also just review, maybe the routine actually isn't working for you. So maybe you need to tweak it a little bit. The other thing that I always find is that people, like New Year's resolutions inevitably end up being dropped because we're too ambitious. So for me, if you want to change a habit or you want to do something new, rather do it in small bite-sized chunks. So change one thing and run with that for 2 weeks. Like, okay, I've got that one. Okay, let's do the next one. Because if we bite off more than what we can chew, we're setting ourselves up for failure. And then you're like, oh, well, I don't know why I bother. Whereas if you do it in bite-sized chunks, it's easier. So also something to think about.
Perfect.
Okay.
Cool.
Hope that helped. See, Helena has had to go. She's got a client. So glad that she just popped in. Thank you so much, ladies. I appreciate you making the time. Well done for making the time for you guys. And I'm looking forward to chatting with you both and finding out all the great changes that you're making. Learning to say no, even if that's the only thing that you do.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Jackie.
Thanks, ladies. Have a beautiful day, hey?
Thanks.
You too.
You too.
Okay, cheers.
Bye.